So, you want to be happy? Are you engaged in the pursuit of happiness? It can be quite frustrating, as I'm sure you know. What exactly do you do when you try to be happy? I know the fake it until you make it thing. So, you put on a plastic smile and you try to feel happy. The problem is, I don't know what happy feels like. How do you describe the feeling of happiness? It's very difficult. And that's why it's so frustrating. It's as if I'm supposed to be happy, but there's no method for it. There's no way to be happy on demand. So here's a suggestion. Maybe we should stop trying to be happy. Maybe we shouldn't be pursuing happiness. It's only making us miserable. Maybe instead, just a suggestion, maybe instead of trying to be happy, we should try to be more enthusiastic. Whatever it is you're doing, put a little more enthusiasm into it. Whatever your life consists of, your daily activity, that's your life right now. If you have plans of changing, well, when you change, then you'll deal with that. Right now, you're dealing with your life as it is. So, whatever it is you're doing, do it enthusiastically. Now, enthusiasm is a little more realistic and doable than is happiness. You put a little more energy into what you're doing. You try to be a little better at it. It's doable. We know what enthusiasm feels like. So it's more, I don't know, available. So my first suggestion is that we give up on the happiness pursuit and focus on enthusiasm. Whatever you're doing, it's worth doing better. And I'm not talking about perfection or excelling, just more enthusiasm. This is my day, this is my life. I got to be a little more enthusiastic about this. I have a feeling that that will kind of bring happiness automatically. And that basically is the theme of today's conversation. Happiness has to come naturally. So the first way of bringing happiness is by not pursuing it, but instead increasing in the enthusiasm with which you pursue your life, whatever your life happens to be at the moment. Suggestion number 2. Another way of releasing happiness rather than pursuing it, in other words, allowing natural happiness to happen, is simply by recognizing reasons for gratitude. What are you grateful for? And I'm not talking about that grateful for the sunshine and grateful for the birds' songs. I don't mean that. Find one thing in your life that you are truly grateful for. Grateful means something you have, something you got, something you're getting that you don't deserve. more than you deserve. So you can't say, I'm grateful that I get paid at the end of the day for my job. That's not more than you deserve. That's exactly what you deserve. But what are you grateful for? For example, let's say your parents had a really hard time emotionally, financially, politically, socially. They had an uphill struggle in their lives. By all rights, you should be a mess because they had no time for you. They didn't pay attention to you. They were preoccupied with their issues, with their struggles. You should be a total mess. If, despite that, you have a life worth living, you should be grateful. Could have turned out much worse. That's what I mean by grateful. That somehow you managed, somehow you succeeded at something, even though it really wasn't um, the ideal, the ideal background or the ideal foundation for that to happen. I think we all have that. I mean, to some degree, after the Holocaust, we should never have been born. Our grandparents should never have wanted to bring children into this world. That's what the average person would have decided. But they decided to get married. They decided to have children. There's a woman who was at the hospital having her 8th child. This was right after the war. And the doctor said to her, "How many children do you plan on having?" And she hesitated for a moment, but then she said, 6 million. We got to be grateful for that because no one saw that one coming. So it's not like we can take it for granted. No, something unusual happened and we are the result. That's real gratitude. As we find gratitude in our lives, the joy comes naturally. If you are grateful, then you will feel joy. That's suggestion number 2. What you're seeing is that in fact happiness is is like life itself. A baby is born happy. Happy about what? About breathing. There's something about breath that is essentially related or even synonymous with life itself. As the Torah says, God breathed a living soul into the human being, into the human body. He breathed. Life is a breath. And maybe that's why the horror of not being able to breathe is so intense. More than any other disability, not being able to breathe. Because breath is life. So being able to breathe is the joy of life. You don't need any more than that. So, why do we need to pursue happiness? You see, that is based on such a negative assumption. The pursuit of happiness? If you're alive and breathing, why are you not happy? Why must it be pursued? So that assumption is already undermining our natural thinking. You don't have to pursue happiness. Now, there are things that might drain your happiness, your natural happiness. One of those things is doubt. See, we are natural creatures, but we are also intelligent creatures by nature, which means we love to breathe. It's a pleasure, but we also love to understand. That's an even greater pleasure. We need to understand like we need to breathe. When life doesn't make sense, we can't handle it. Intelligent beings cannot handle emptiness, um, pointlessness, senselessness. We can't handle it. So when we have doubts, when the mind is not clear, when we're not confident in our knowledge, that can drain the enthusiasm and even the happiness out of life, as natural as happiness is. Doubt can ruin it. So, what do we do about doubts? We have a culture that actually believes in doubt. That if you're doubting, you're somehow intelligent. But if you're believing, you're naive. You're suspended. Your logic or your sense, good sense, and you're not using your head. But that is not really true at all. You don't you don't need doubt to make your life complete. You can live without it. There is really no need for doubt ever in life. Of course, you have doubts. It's not one of those things you can't live without, just like indigestion. You can live without it, even though it's common. So doubts are common, but we actually encourage it. In high school and college, you're encouraged to doubt. That's a mistake. It's an educational mistake. It's wrong to encourage doubt. It's like somebody had a T-shirt, and on the front of the T-shirt it said, "Doubt everything." And this one guy stopped and read the T-shirt that said, "Doubt everything," and he said, "I'm not sure that's correct." Well, can you doubt doubts? It's absurd. Why would you doubt? What do you accomplish by that? What does it do for you? Absolutely nothing. Other than drain the joy out of life. Education doesn't mean doubt everything you know. Education means look a little deeper into the ideas that you already have. Grow them. Don't leave them at the level that you first received them. You were taught that 2 and 2 is 4. That's it. You're going to leave it at that? That was in kindergarten. So, of course, you grow your understanding, you grow your knowledge. That doesn't mean you doubt that 2 and 2 is 4. 2 and 2 is 4. But then how much is 4 and 4? And 4 and 4 really is 8. But then how much is 4 times 4? That's not doubting. That's not questioning the truth of what you already know. It's adding to it. It's not being content with a shallow understanding. You want to go deeper. So the question is not, how can I be sure it's right? The question is that all there is? Everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten and I don't have to learn anything else? So we can get rid of doubts. A doubt means I don't have enough information. If you ask me whether there's life on Mars, and I say, I doubt it. No, I don't doubt it. I simply don't know. And there's no doubt about that. I really don't know. So, this expression, I doubt it, I have doubts about. No, you don't have doubts. You have insufficient information. There's nothing doubtful about that. As we get rid of our doubts, the joy of life comes back. In fact, the doubt is like developing a leak. And slowly, the joy of your life, the happiness of life, trickles out through that leak. Plug up the leak. Doubt is simply a crack in your system, and your joy is leaking out. That's why certain principles of life need to be absolutely certain in your mind and heart. What is it you believe in? Believe means it's absolutely true beyond a doubt. Nothing? You know nothing that is beyond a doubt? Then you're not a happy person. At the very least, we should start our day with something I know for sure. If before you walk out of the house to go to work, you tell your children, I love you, you make my life worth living. Absolutely true. It's a good way to start the day. Something solid, something real, something true that about which you have no doubt. You come home at the end of the day, after all the doubts you suffer during the workday, you come home at the end of the day, conclude the day with something about which you have no doubt. Glad to be home. There should be no doubt about that. One final thought. The effects of joy. What is the need for it? Okay, it's natural. If you can breathe, you're happy. But why do we need happiness? A person does what he needs to do, is completely, correctly, accurately functional. Why does he need to be happy? What makes happiness necessary rather than a pleasure that we can live without. Or, in different words, what's so terrible when I'm not happy? So, I mean, we all know from our experience when you're not happy, it's not just happiness that is missing in your life, everything in your life becomes dull. When you're not happy, nothing seems worth the effort. When you're not happy, life itself becomes tedious. Just getting up, answering a phone, making breakfast, swallowing the breakfast. It's all tedious. It's heavy, sluggish. There's no energy. So the lack of happiness seems to turn you off to everything in life. Happiness, on the other hand, would turn you on to everything in life. So the way it's described in the Torah is that happiness or joy opens the gates. See, we live in very protected conditions. We need to protect ourselves. We need security. We need to be safe. Sometimes that security doesn't only protect us from the outside, but it kind of locks us into the inside. We get so protected that we feel claustrophobic. We put up these big walls to protect ourselves, and we forget that every wall has to have a gate that opens and lets you out. Otherwise, you're walled in. Emotionally, what is the gate that allows us to venture out? That's joy. Without joy, we don't open that gate. We don't have the energy or the confidence or the resilience to take on life out there. Primarily, we're afraid of pleasure. We're afraid to indulge in pleasure when we're not happy. We become protective or defensive. And so we cheat ourselves out of a lot of pleasure that we could have if we would explore life. Get beyond yourself. Because self-induced pleasure doesn't last very long. How many times can you enjoy looking at yourself in the mirror? Well, some people are pretty good at it. They can do it for years, but eventually it stops. In order to really experience pleasure, you got to get beyond yourself. Going beyond yourself has certain risks. Of course, you have a gate that lets you out. Well, that gate can also let things in. So, yes, you become a little vulnerable, maybe a lot vulnerable. But if you don't have that gate, all the pleasure in life is beyond your reach. Joy is what opens the gate and gives you the confidence to risk a little and gain a lot. So, joy is the gate or the gate opener. For example, when you're trying to study a subject and you're not happy about it, your brain just doesn't function. You're a smart person. This is not rocket science. You should be able to master the subject pretty easily. And yet it's not going. You try, and it doesn't work. You read it, you forget it, you don't understand it, doesn't make sense to you, you get frustrated, then you become resentful. You don't want to have to study this. What is all that coming from? Because you don't have the joy. You don't have the key that opens that gate, the gate to your own intelligence. So without joy, your pleasure is restricted and your intelligence is sluggish. When you're studying a subject that you enjoy studying, all of a sudden you're quite bright. You catch on quickly and you understand deeply and you remember every word. And here you thought you were dumb. Sure, when you're studying a subject that you don't enjoy, that you don't have joy in, yeah, you're going to be pretty dumb. Because without joy is like running on fumes. So these are the 5 ideas that can help us get to the joy and get the benefits that joy brings. Number 1, don't pursue it. Pursue the things that are doable, that are tangible. Like, for example, enthusiasm. Be more enthusiastic about your activities, about your efforts. Or number 2, gratitude. Feel more grateful about the things that you should be grateful for. That will allow the natural joy to express itself. Also, you can remove that which is draining you of your joy, and that is doubts. Stop with the doubts. If you don't know, you don't know. That's realism. That's reality and truth. A person should get used to saying, I don't know, instead of I doubt it. Number 4, life itself is a pleasure. You got to think of it that way. It's not something that comes from doing something in particular, going someplace, meeting someone. Joy in life doesn't come from the detail of life, it comes from life itself. So if you're thinking, if only I lived in a different place, I would find happiness. If only I did something different. If only I could go on vacation, if I could go to an amusement park, if I could go to a movie, to a sports event, I would find happiness. No, you will find some temporary pleasure. Don't confuse the two. And then number 5, appreciate the need for the joy. That the joy is actually the gate to all the higher talents, to all the higher functions. You can walk without joy. You can talk without joy. But you can't understand and you can't feel the pleasure of life if you don't open the gate. And the only thing that opens that gate is joy. So let it in. Let the joy be. By removing the doubts, feeling grateful, and being a little more enthusiastic about the things you're doing. Hope that makes you happy. If you enjoyed this conversation or this topic and you're looking for more information or you want to hear it again, from another angle, there is a way to do that. And that is in this book. It's all there. Order it from Amazon. You can read it, reread it, and share it. I want to invite you to join us as VIPs, partners in our work, and join us also for a personal chat with other members of the VIP club. We talk about many things. There's an opportunity to ask, to respond, to make a comment, to meet the other supporters. And together we can really make a difference in Jewish life and in life in general. So join us. It's goodtoknow.org. Log in, call, make contact, and join us with the VIPs.